So, Orb is a band from Australia. They're known for a darker, sonically filled and guitar-heavy style that is, reminiscent of late 60s, early 70s hard rock, and that is my jam. I love me some late 60s, early 70s hard rock. It's like a heavier Led Zeppelin and a more psychedelic, fuzzed out Led Zeppelin. So yeah, they released their debut Birth back in 2016 and released two albums in between that one and the album we're talking about today. I like their debut Birth and their second album Naturality quite a bit, and I have been a fan of them for about 2 years and have never been listening to them while they released a new album. So this is a first for me. So to give some context about them, they are signed to Flightless Records, which, if that is ringing a bell, it's probably because of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, or the Murlocs, or Babe Rainbow, or any of the other artists on that label, but King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard is the biggest by a good margin. So yeah, there's a lot of psych on that label. And speaking of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, Orb has opened for them on tour, and you can hear them on Chunky Shrapnel. So, this is their new album, Tailem Bend, and I'm going to review it and talk about it, and it's going to be cool. With this release, I was honestly quite surprised. They definitely changed their sound quite a bit. I mean, if you compare Birth to this album, they don't feel like different bands necessarily, but sometimes they kind of do. But you can still get the same vibe that you get from Birth on this album, but I think it is less common because they kind of soften up a little bit. Now, I don't think it's a bad thing. I like some softer psych, and I think that they do it very, very well here. And I think that this album feels very much like King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. It feels like, because like I said, they were on tour with them for quite a bit. I feel like they have taken a lot of inspiration from them and kind of put it into their own sound, which, again, I love King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, so that's completely my thing. You can still tell that it is Orb, but it's just a little bit softer on the ears most of the time. I'll get into that later, but I think at the end, they get a little bit harder. What really stands out here is that they lean more into a groove and the progression of the song and not just going into these heavier, fuzzed out guitars, which I love that kind of stuff, but I think they lean a lot more into the structure of the song than they do on other albums, which I quite enjoy. I think that the layers and textures that they've added make each track feel like a bit of a journey, and I think each of them stand out independently of one another. What I was not betting on, though, was Orb making some Beatles-esque songs. This was not planned. But I am completely for it. Honestly, I mean, I love the Beatles. I love the psychedelic style. When I heard Orb going into that style more, I was pleasantly surprised, and I quite liked it. So, it is a massive shift for Orb's sound. A lot of the time, Orb is a very heavy band, but here, they have heavy songs, but it's not fully heavy. There's a lot of songs that I think are more King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard, and King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard has heavy songs, but I think as a whole, they aren't a heavy band necessarily, but Orb is kind of known as a heavy band. So I think they might lose some fans with this album. I don't think they're going to lose very many because they still satisfy those fans with the later tracks. The later tracks of this album are very much so still heavy Orb and what Orb is very much known for, and I love that as well. So the first half of the album is a little bit softer, and I feel like it's better for new fans just to get into their sound. And the second half of the album, I think, is for the older fans that are really, really into their heavier hard rock style. I think that it shows that Orb isn't a one-trick pony at all. They can show versatility, and they can show that they are able to evolve past what they're just known for, which I love that in a band. That's a really good quality to have as a band, and I think that they show that very well. However, I do think it's important to mention that this album does kind of get boring to me at some point. It has its repetitive moments. This is kind of a critique I've had with Orb's first album and second album. It's sometimes just too similar. It's a little bit repetitive, and I think that they should change it up more. And they do, but especially near the end, the tracks kind of go back into the same style they've been working with, which is really, really good, but the songs kind of start blending together, and it's hard to tell the differences in between each one, and it's hard to be like, yeah, this song is distinctly better than this song, which is okay. I just think that if they had switched it up a little bit, maybe on one song had a more progressive sound, on another song had a more, metal sound, I think that would have maybe made the album a little bit more interesting to me. This is still a very interesting album, but near the end, it starts to drag on a little bit. Overall, though, very impressed with this release. Orb has managed to surprise me in a very pleasant way to um, show me an album that I didn't think that they were going to go in this direction. Like I said, a more Beatles-esque sound, but they did, and they did it quite well. And they also pleased fans of their first albums by making this heavy sound towards the end, but in the beginning trying to attract new fans. And I hope that they do with this album. Speaking of which, I suggest listening to this album. For fans, people that never heard of Orb, I think new fans should listen to this album. The newest one, Tailem Bend, is probably your best bet for trying to get into Orb. If you like King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard and have never heard of Orb, I highly suggest this album. Listen to it. My score is an 81. Very good album. I suggest listening to it, and I am excited to see where Orb goes in the future. Yeah. Tell me what you think in the comments, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.